back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. Now, a landmark decision that could affect thousands of people who have transitioned. Fox variant identified as a boy, as a teenager, and she had a double mastectomy when she was just 16 years old. But now, she's been awarded $2 million after a jury found a psychologist and a surgeon liable of medical malpractice. I am joined by the Executive Director of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater. I don't even have to say to applause. Maya, this seems like a huge deal and something that a lot of people have been seeing in the future for a long time, and now it's actually happened. You've had in America thousands of children caught up in this arguably social contagion of gender ideology, arguably pushed by psychologists, by surgeons to have healthy body parts chopped off, and now there's finally accountability.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first one. I think there are 28 cases at various stages. This is the first one that got to court and where the medical malpractice was found, and then the jury awarded $2 billion, which, you know, money talks, if nothing else. So I think the gender doctors, the insurers are going to start taking this seriously. Well,
that's it. No one, well, that's not saying no one, but one of the lesser highlighted part of this whole process is the money element, because in America, certainly with health insurance, there are people who have made a lot of money by carrying out these surgeries and by providing these drugs. And when it comes to them now losing money, it's going to be hopefully less pushed then on kids, certainly.
Yeah, and I think quite often what you see is that, you know, the surgeon who does the surgery thinks that someone up the chain has, you know, because the surgery, a mastectomy is a legitimate surgery, a hysterectomy is a legitimate surgery, but the question is, who are you giving it to? And the surgeon who does it thinks, well, someone up the chain has diagnosed this person as needing this. But in fact, if they don't, like you say, you're just removing healthy body parts from someone who can turn around later and say, you shouldn't have done that to me. This is not medicine, it's not ethical.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about a 16-year-old. And when you argue this stuff online with people, and they're like, oh, it never happens, this never happens with children. This is a 16-year-old girl. And I believe the parents were told by the psychiatrist that if she didn't have the surgery, she'd commit suicide, basically, which is that narrative that has actually been proven to be false, and I imagine is part of this case. Do you think that because of this money won now, there are going to be other detransitioners out there who will also want to hold their doctors and psychiatrists to account? There'll be more cases coming?
I think they'll start to see that it's possible. I mean, some of the cases aren't going to make it because of limitations. You know, you run out of time. But certainly there will be detransitioners. There will be people who've been harmed by this, who are able to bring cases and get accountability.
Yeah, well, let's take things a little bit closer to home. Obviously, in the UK, by the way, we had Kira Bell, who had a similar, but holding the NHS to account has been slightly different. And
Kira Bell, together with James S's and the Bayswater group of parents, are also, I think, planning to sue Wes Streeting and the Department of Health here for their upcoming puberty blockers trials. It's the same thing, you know, can children make an informed decision to take a drug that is going to sterilise them and leave them without sexual function as an adult?
Well, I read, I think an article, I think it was Hannah Barnes recently did an article talking about how this Pathways trial, the question is actually whether the parents have been properly informed as to the very real and harmful side effects of taking these drugs. Loss of bone density, changing brain pathways. And if you've got parents who are kind of going along with this and not being informed, that surely, yeah, the NHS becomes liable then.
And again, I mean, it's not just the side effects, but the actual effects of, I mean, the effect of stopping puberty and in preparation for a child to be able to transition at a young age, the whole thing has been missold. The question of whether you can make any informed decision on the basis of something that is a child's dream.
Yeah, so there was a court case in the UK this week you were taking the City of London, I think it is, to court, to the High Court. Is that right?
Yes.
But it was a loss, but it's not as simple as that. Is that right?
Yes. So it was a loss at this stage. It was on procedural grounds. So basically, we were taking the City of London, who run Hampstead Heath, and they run the ponds on Hampstead Heath. There are 3 ponds, male, female and mixed. So you'd think there'd be somewhere for everybody to swim. But of course, they let men who identify as women into the women's pond, women who identify as men into the men's pond. We think that's unlawful. We didn't even get as far as being able to argue why that's unlawful. They said, the policy's been going on for a long time, therefore you can't challenge it. But also we're consulting and we're going to change the policy soon, and so you can't challenge the new policy yet. And we don't think you have standing. So they said it shouldn't be Sex Matters who brings a case, it should be individual women who have been harmed by this policy. So basically the court kicked the can down the road. They didn't say it was lawful, they just said, not this court, not this time. So one way or another we'll be back, and the City of London, their policy has to be lawful.
Well, how do you feel that it's been coming up to a year where the Supreme Court made a ruling that sex refers to biological sex, that women's rights seemingly in law were protected again, and you still have a place like the City of London, you still have Hampstead Ponds, and they're still letting in biological males into female spaces?
It's really frustrating. I mean, we've seen lots of organisations have taken action quietly and more publicly. Girl Guides now have the Women's Institute, the estate of the Houses of Parliament, various universities and local councils, you know, they have fixed their policies. But all of these, lots of organisations are saying, we're waiting for the guidance, we're waiting for the guidance. They're basically hiding behind that. I think eventually they're all going to have to move, because there is no place to go other than complying with the law.
Yeah, so Bridget Phillipson, this is still on her desk. If she did actually finally implement the EHRC's recommendations here, would this case immediately go away? Is that the idea? Would it leave them any chance to still hold back?
It depends what the City of London does. But it becomes much harder for them to do something other than what's in the guidance, unless, you know, once it's laid. And this is causing real harm to real people. You know, it sounds like it's all a bit academic guidance and policies, but this is what leads to things like the Darlington nurses, Sandy Peggy, you know, being forced into changing rooms, women being forced into changing rooms with men and losing their jobs when they complain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's been another development also in Europe, where the Council of Europe, which I didn't know was a thing, but they have just this week approved essentially a conversion therapy ban. Now, we've covered this on the show over the years, but the idea is that if someone goes to a therapist and says, you know, they're a girl, and they say, I actually feel like a boy, you would expect the therapist to kind of go, well, let's have a look at what these reasons might be: autism, history of being sexually assaulted, uncomfortableness in puberty, being a lesbian. There are all these other reasons to explore. But now in Europe, if a young girl goes in and says, I'm a boy...
Well, not quite.
Is it not like that?
Not quite. So
okay.
The Council of Europe...
That's why I've got you here.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
the expert.
So the Council of Europe is different from the EU. The UK is still in the Council of Europe. It doesn't make laws, but what it does is it makes declarations which are seen as being important and influential. So it isn't actually a ban, but what it did was it's MPs from different countries who sit in the Council of Europe, and they agreed this resolution that conversion therapy should be banned. So then it's up to individual countries whether they do it or not. But what's going to happen now is people can point to the Council of Europe and say, see, this is European consensus, you should do this, this is the right thing to do. But in fact, only a third of the representatives that are elected to be there even turned up. You know, it's not a very democratic institution, but it doesn't have the power to actually ban things. All it has the power to do is saying, we think you should ban stuff. So
yeah, but as you say, I guess the danger is that it allows trans activists to say, hey, look, they've ruled on this, and if you don't really know these issues, then they're going to go along with it. And that's how that activism has infiltrated so many institutions over the last 10, 15 years.
absolutely, it's not good news, but I don't want to say that there is a ban and that people are going to be arrested for it
Okay,
tomorrow.
fine. So it's not, we haven't got to that point,
no.
But it's not good news, though, arguably. And also, so am I right thinking there are British MPs who have been part of this,
yes,
right?
I mean, this was led by British MPs, and the idea of banning conversion therapy is something that the last government said they were going to do, and once they sat down and looked at doing it, they realised there was nothing to ban. You know, if you say people are being tortured, of course it would be terrible if people were being tortured, but one, they're not, and two, if they were, that would be unlawful already. They couldn't figure out that there was anything to ban that wasn't already unlawful. And so they still haven't done it. Last government didn't do it, this government didn't do it, but some UK MPs who are on the Council of Europe set off to make a big noise about conversion therapy.
But isn't that sort of, they're pushing something that is contrary to the laws of the UK, and yet they're elected representatives from the UK?
Quite. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're trying to push the agenda ahead in Europe and then say, look, we need to catch up.
Wow. So, and there's nothing, is there anything that, I know there was the Athena Forum that was set up to kind of counter this. They actually, how's that worked out for them? I know people were signing, I signed a form for, you know, to protest against it, but... I
mean, it was great that happened. Up to now, there's been no organised pushback, really, in Europe. You know, the gender identity lobby has had years at this, and because of the Athena Forum, we were all able to write to our MPs and get them to start thinking about this. So that was good. It's not over either in Europe or in the UK, and it's going to be very difficult to bring in legislation about conversion therapy that does anything.
Interesting. Well, talking about it not being over, again, it's been nearly a year since the Supreme Court ruled on this. And I naively thought at the time that this was the argument was won and that normality would return, but it just feels like this is very much an ongoing issue. Do you think that there is an end in sight? Do you see the end?
It's not close, is it? I mean, organisations seem so resistant to just doing what is really clear from the Supreme Court's judgment, recognising that when you have single-sex spaces, or when you have any kind of rules or programmes that are for women, that should be for women. And that should be something that they celebrate. It shouldn't even be something that they do grudgingly. They should do that because they want to do things for women. And so far, very few have shown the willingness to do that. But that is the law. And this government hasn't said they're going to change that. So that's the direction that we're going in.
Well, don't take this the wrong way, but when I don't see you again, it means things are better. Anyway, big round of applause, please. Executive Director of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater.